So as I said, this is the final presentation of Module 6. It's on effective communications for your watershed improvement efforts. And today we're going to be reviewing a variety of options to packaging and delivering your water quality message. I will be accompanied by several guest speakers that are going to step in to provide short descriptions of some of their more successful outreach efforts that they've conducted throughout the state. And then hopefully we'll have some time at the end to answer questions that you feel like submitting along the way in the chat box. And then maybe it would be helpful if speakers, which I think you've already done this, unmute when it's your turn to talk. So I'll just be going through the slides and I'll call on you when it's your turn. So let's jump into the presentation. You have, so most of you I recognize of having been with us throughout this module, and you know that now you've identified your objectives for your watershed campaign, you've assessed your target audience, and you've crafted your message. So now it's time to figure out the best format for getting that message out to your audience. As we've mentioned, you really need to think about connecting your audience through the most appropriate format for them. And you'll want to consider things like the size of your audience, its geographic distribution, if it's spread out over a large area, or if it's a smaller focused area, the prevailing level of awareness or education about the issue, or if you're starting from kind of ground zero, and then some preferred formats that your target audience generally uses to get its information. There are a lot of format options out there, and you'll want to use the one that best fits your message, the resources you have, and obviously your audience. There are also a lot of considerations to make when you're narrowing down these options. You're going to think about obviously your budget, and are you operating under a grant that has a specific line item amount for messaging activities? Are there similar materials from other organizations that you could adapt to your needs, and maybe you could request permission to do that? Are you operating under time constraints that might eliminate some of your options? Are there some legal requirements, such as if you want to put up a sign or a billboard, you may need to check with the transportation cabinet or other local government entities that might have specific rules about that? And if you're working with an audience that has limited internet access, informational websites might not be as helpful. So with the goal of communicating your message, you want to take note of a basic marketing formula for success. You can achieve greater results by expanding your reach to expose more people to the message and finding a way to deliver it again and again. So reach times frequency will help get results. In general, I have seen that it's recommended that you try to reach some people multiple times rather than many people just once or twice. And in the last presentation we did, Steve touched on the water words that work. So for those of you that weren't on that presentation offering, this refers to the tendency for water professionals to use words, terms, or acronyms that the general public is not familiar with and likely doesn't understand. So in your communications, it's really important to try to tone down the use of jargon and ensure you're using vocabulary that successfully communicates your message. This organization has a wide range of information on their website. And but the basic premise is that there are key words that will be better understood as replacements for some of our professional terms, like best management practices doesn't really translate to most people. They suggest using conservation activities, or discharge, probably better to say something like release of polluted water. Green space, better understood as natural areas. So those are just a few examples that they've used, but we'll try to provide a resource document that includes more of these on our Academy website. So now we're going to talk through some of these formats along with their pros and cons and the optimal situations for using them. And as I mentioned, we're going to present some of the better examples of these formats that have been used with the help of our guest speakers. So we'll start with mass media. Although it may seem old school, mass media options such as TV, radio, and newspaper can be the most cost-effective and efficient way to reach a large audience. And these can include just good old informational news stories, public service announcements, editorials, interviews. And these can all be effective as pretty easily available options and usually free of cost, free of charge. The cons to them are that you may trade off control of your message and its timing and frequency of release. To better ensure the effectiveness, these news releases or press releases are a good way an upfront way to provide reporters with the basic information for a good news story. And they may even just decide to print or report the story as you've written it, especially for some of our local newspapers that are struggling with small budgets these days. So to create an effective news story, you'll want to use one of these criteria on the left to help capture your audience. Things like involving local people or issues, relating to some kind of current event, quoting someone who's respected in the community, and making it timely and relevant. And then you add your message to complete the story and try to educate, engage, and motivate your audience. And then you refer to the story fundamentals that we learned back in grade school of incorporating the who, what, where, when, why, and how of your story. These headlines are some examples that feature little nuggets that you can use to build your story around and capture your audience. You want to make your news appealing to the reporters and help them make it interesting to their viewers, listeners, or readers. The Hinkston Creek Watershed in Kentucky has done a great job of utilizing media to gain attention and understanding of watershed issues there. A series of newspaper articles provided some historical interest about Hinkston Creek and helped people understand some of the modern issues that it faces. And then conversations with local radio hosts provided another outlet for this information. And then to build on this general awareness campaign, an article about farm conservation practices and a related farm field day helped promote the agricultural BMPs that they were advocating for. And a series of billboards gave high profile recognition to participating farmers in the community. TV news coverage can also be used to effectively help promote events, publicize timely reports, inform viewers about hot issues, or just provide general awareness and education. So it has several pros, reaching a big audience. It can be free if you use the local news stations, and you can include really illustrative graphics and video, and it's easier for people to watch than it is to maybe get people to read documents that you put out. Some of the cons to TV news coverage, it takes time and patience to work with the reporters to try to get your story right, but the reporters still might change it. You just don't know, and it might require some coaching of whoever is going to speak to the news to help them feel more comfortable with giving interviews. Here's a media celebrity speaking to WYMT News in Eastern Kentucky last year. He was publicizing a community meeting on water sampling results and a public discussion we were having about possible solutions. He did a really good job of highlighting the key findings, and he touched on the need to correct some sewage issues in the community. And then the news had been out at the creeks, and they provided some really good video footage of the local streams and added an interview from the local watershed coordinator to give a local perspective. So public service announcements are also an effective way to use TV or radio airtime to help raise public awareness about an issue, publicize an upcoming event, or recruit volunteers or donations. And these can be either video or audio format with lots of creative possibilities, but you need to get right to the point because you won't have much time to do it. Although they are played for free, so that's one of the pros of PSAs, you can purchase additional airtime to increase the frequency that they're shown. And you can also sometimes work with stations to help target your audience through demographic information that they have. These PSAs can also include videos that help you demonstrate the desired behavior that you're going for and have a high impact. Some of the cons are that you're competing for airtime. They're relatively passive form of education. It's kind of hard to evaluate the impact you're having. And they can be expensive to produce if you're using professional videographers. And they're a short format, mainly just for awareness. So I wanted to show you this example of a PSA, and hopefully this will work. These PSAs should be kept pretty short, like 30 seconds or less, to increase the likelihood that they'll be shown. Here's one that was developed by the state of Kentucky to create greater awareness about people's contributions to stormwater pollution. Hope this works. Okay, come on. We practiced this yesterday.
Nice pool, lady.
What are you doing?
I'm just giving you a taste of what it's like for us fish.
Well, what do you mean?
You people throw all this stuff on the ground and it washes down the storm drain right into my pool. Ew, yourself. Don't just walk about it. Stop it before us fish have to take matters into our own hands. Flippers.
Help keep Kentucky's waterways cleaner by keeping trash off the ground. Visit our website to find out how you can help.
It was a slightly annoying but dramatic and attention-grabbing PSA that included the fish mascot and the family and child being impacted, and I think it was fairly effective. I have another one here, a recent one from Lexington that I was going to let Jennifer Myatt speak about. Jennifer, do you want me to show it first or do you want to talk first?
You can show it first.
Okay.
Is that a new neighbor?
It was Joe with the lawn care company asking about cleaning up our leaves this fall. What do you think, Blaze? It would be nice not to worry about it.
I'd like our time together, but if you hire a service, ask good questions. Would they mulch some of the leaves back into the lawn? It's free fertilizer. Would they keep the leaves out of the roadways?
Whoa, Blake, if we were to hire someone, we'd definitely make sure they protect our environment while taking care of our yard.
Whoa, that makes me feel better.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We have, so I wouldn't call them like mascots, but we have like little talking people characters in our new set of ads, and that's one of the new ones. And basically it's cute and attention grabbing and kind of focuses, it's very friendly and not, it's not controversial. So that's just kind of how our audience rolls. So we do have a budget. I know Ken said something about the animation budget in the chat, and we do have a budget for stormwater education because we have it from the water quality management fee. But we do try to, we have our ads, we redid a bunch of them this year because it had been, gosh, probably about 5 years since we'd really done a big push of new ads. So when we do them, I mean, we try to do them well, and then And we can, because we're a bigger city with a stormwater fee, we can afford to put the money out there to make the ads, and then we can keep them for 5 years or however long. And they're still effective, and we can just make minor changes. So that's pretty much it. I don't know if anybody has questions about it. Go ahead and ask.
Educational videos are also a really good way to showcase your issue and the accompanying message, especially now during a pandemic when we have time to create these, and it's the best way to reach people sometimes without actually being around them. People are generally more responsive to visual information or visual images than words, and so videos are a really good option. And you can cover an issue more in depth, and you have good control over the content. And then you can provide them either through your website or other different outlets. So they have a lot of uses. They can be a little challenging to do well, and maybe costly if you want to hire a videographer to help film it and edit it. And you also need a good distribution mechanism to get it out there, but that's becoming easier and easier these days, I think. So here's another example that I wanted to show from Carrollton Utilities in Northern Kentucky. They start out with interviews of local residents, asking them where their household water comes from. So I'll just show a little snippet of this.
We asked the people of Carroll County where their tap water comes from.
The tap water comes from the river here in Carrollton and goes through the water treatment plant.
Carrollton's tap water comes out of the faucet when I turn the faucet on.
Out of the water faucet? I'm not sure where it exactly comes from.
I know it's processed through Carrollton Utilities.
They were surprised and a little confused to learn that the source of their water is actually an alluvial aquifer.
Alluvial aquifer. I have never heard of it.
I don't know anything about an alluvial aquifer.
I have no idea what an alluvial aquifer is.
So I thought that was it goes on, it's about 7 minutes long, and they do then explain what an alluvial aquifer is as their source of water and why it's a high quality source of drinking water, and then explain how quality drinking water and tap water is really important for business and the local economy, and how residents can help prevent contamination of that water supply. So I thought that was a really good video done by a drinking water provider. I'm not sure if Amanda's on the call yet, but Amanda Gumbert was hopefully going to make it on in time. She had an earlier call. She was going to talk about their agricultural water quality plan testimonial videos that they developed that are posted on their website. And they're another really good example of the use of video to help get your message out. Amanda, are you on the call?
I'm still on the store.
I don't think she is. So they went on site to the various farms and interviewed the farmers about which practices they put in place and how those have benefited them and their farming efficiency and economies of scale. And just hearing directly from the farmers who found these benefits is really important to gaining trust and buy-in from other farmers across the state. And they did a great job of these. We're not going to watch one of them, but I encourage you to check those out if you haven't seen them already. Also, Amanda was going to talk about UK's KYH2O podcast. She and Carmen Agaritas developed these podcasts for building awareness about a variety of water issues, and they enable a little more time for in-depth issue coverage. They are about 10 to 30 minutes long, and they did a really good job of making these interesting to listen to with Streamside. interviews with knowledgeable people. They have outdoor sound effects and kind of a light conversational tone. And these podcasts are available for free online, and you are welcome to use them in your educational outreach. So printed formats are limitless, and we're going to go through some of these options. Even in this digital world, they're still really helpful and effective for helping promote events, as informational handouts, to summarize scientific data, to conduct surveys and get feedback, and then also for educational signage. You can reach a really large audience and include more technical information. You can also adapt them and tailor them to different audiences. And they're usually a lower cost option and can be reread and processed over time. They do require a little time and skill to create if you want them to be more accessible and engaging. And it might be difficult to distribute them to your audience at times. And it does, just like I said, require some level of interest to the audience just to go ahead and read those that you've provided. This is an example of an educational handout or poster that the Division of Water created that makes a really attention-grabbing connection between trees and saving fish or water quality. And it uses a lot of colorful visuals to demonstrate this concept with graphics that lead your eye to the central point of what riparian buffers are. It's important to note that once these graphics are created, you can use them in digital contexts as well as printed formats. And a group that's done this really well is UK's Cooperative Extension Service. So I was going to have Suzette Walling talk a little bit about their No Pee on My Lawn campaign. Suzette.
Yeah, thanks. So this was an educational program that we were targeting urban homeowners. We wanted to inform them of the negative impacts of over and incorrectly applied fertilizers. And because we thought there was a gap in understanding of what lands on their lawn can actually get into waterways. And our focus was on phosphorus, obviously because of the contributions to algal blooms, but also because we've got elevated levels of phosphorus in our soils naturally. And so we thought this is an opportunity to educate homeowners, but also potentially lawn care companies. But our first challenge was kind of like you were saying, how are you going to get the audience's attention? We're talking about packaging nutrient management, for a residential audience. So we did come up with the name No Pee on My Lawn, but I will say this, that during football season, somebody said, I want that sign because they didn't want anybody to park on their lawn. And then I had somebody else contact me because I lived next door to college students, and they said, I want one of those signs because evidently they had issues with college students using their lawn as a urinal. So anyway, yeah, so your signage is important, but I will say if it provokes a response, then it's all good. But we did deliver this. We did do a news release, kind of following your format here. And what you see here is some social media we began to develop. We did this locally because our funding was local, but we also sent this around the state. But basically our message on social media was, don't over fertilize, and that's our action step. So what's our action step, and then provide the do's and don'ts of that action. And our delivery on this was through workshops primarily. We felt like that was our biggest impact, the best way to reach people and to engage them. And I have to say, I was kind of impressed with the level of interest on something that's, for most people, that nutrient management's not in their jargon. But I think you start to draw people in, and they want to know more about something they don't know about. So, but anyway, we used this to reach out through community groups and neighborhood associations. And like I said, we delivered this through workshops, and we worked with Urban Forest Initiative to kind of expand that. You're talking about the partnering piece. And that helped us actually help homeowners look at their lawn holistically, like their lawn care in a holistic manner. And we did measure successes by, workshops or soil tests or surveys. But I think, and, to see what their increased understanding was. But I think what was more telling was really behavior change. And we saw that through the workshops, people engaging, asking questions, willing to change their lawn care habits, calling up their lawn care company, going to the store, and they didn't buy fertilizer because they couldn't find a no-P variety. Or going to a watershed meeting and trying to get that community to engage merchants to take phosphorus-based fertilizers off the shelves. So again, we don't always see all those benefits, but I think that, gauging success, it's not just the numbers, it's, what is the community, is the community engaging, and that they are going to be the ones, if we can give them the information and the action, they're going to be the ones that will ultimately provoke that change in the community.
Thanks, Suzette. That was all helpful. Great information. Thank you. So this is another example of a printed format that was developed by the city of Madisonville. It's educational table topper that they provided to local restaurants. And Eric, are you on the call? Okay, well, Eric Hickman with the city of Madisonville was supposed to be on and talk a little bit about how they use this sign to provide water quality outreach in Madisonville, which is in Hopkins County. And they also displayed it near kayak launches and boat ramps and helped inform people about what the watershed areas were in the county. You can see on this county map, they're clearly delineated there, and provided some goals about how they want to help improve water quality in the county. Another option is door hangers, which can be left on household doors during election season. I'm sure you maybe experienced this already, but it's a good way to distribute a message without having to disturb residents. And the example on the left was used to notify residents about a homeowner assistance program that helped cover costs of connecting to a new sewer line that was installed in the area. And the one on the right was taken from North Georgia, but it helped spread the word about septic system maintenance and the need to regularly pump out your septic. Educational signs are another common version of a printed format that we use in watershed outreach. They can be created to last several years and posted in really highly trafficked areas where passersby can stop and read them at their leisure. This sign was installed beside a recently planted riparian buffer in Lincoln County, and it covers several important topics from generally what a watershed is to how people impact water quality and what the buffers do to help. Here's another example of an educational sign near the Woolsing Woods wetland in Kenton County. It has a lot of nice eye-catching visuals of the wildlife that the wetland supports and a graphic of how the wetlands help reduce stormwater runoff and reduce downstream flooding. And here's an educational sign with graphics related to aquatic life that is likely to be found in the stream and the associated stream habitats types. And this sign includes a QR code, which is for quick response. I actually had to look that up, but even though I know what it is, but this can be used to be scanned for a quick connection to more info that's posted on the local watershed group's website. These are also from the city of Madisonville, and along with those table toppers, they added 22 watershed signs throughout the county to help bring attention to the various watersheds and creeks in Madisonville. And then the city helped promote these signs and explain their significance through related Facebook posts. This was paid for through the MS4 or stormwater utility funds from the city of Madisonville. Next, I wanted to talk or have Ken Cook talk about maps, big maps that he has successfully used in and around Fayette County, especially.
I think most of you have seen this map. It's been around since I think 2015 or maybe even earlier. The maps are produced at any banner company. They use an outdoor vinyl and they can print at up to, I think, 300 dots per inch, which is fairly high resolution on these things. The cost of printing, I think, ranges for the size. This particular size ranges anywhere between 500 to 800 bucks. Key to these maps, though, is the artwork, and you have to have a really, really good graphic artist to put it together. And our graphic artist for this particular map was none other than Steve Evans. Steve, what map layers did you use to create this map?
A bunch.
A bunch. The key was the photography. We wanted to be sure everybody in our watershed could see their house. Then the second were landmarks, streets and roads, parks, schools, that kind of stuff, so they could get a frame of reference. And the purpose, the sole purpose, is to connect them to the watershed in terms of a sense of place. And from that sense of place, we tap into the reptilian sense of territoriality. And from that sense of territoriality, we can motivate them to defend the quality of water in that watershed.
I think I had a couple other photos of where these have been used at, like stream planting projects and other creek walks where we identify the focus area and like target.
Yeah, these banners are pretty hardy. You can walk on them, they can get wet. You can wash them off when they're done. You can put dry erase markers on them. You can put stickers on them. I figure I need to update these things about every 5 years or so. So I'm due for an update and we'll probably be seeking funding for that from at least one or more people on this call.
All right, thanks, Ken.
So I just want to add to that.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that that's really effective at events. People are all over it. Just as an FYI.
Yeah. Agreed. So another tool that is helpful is having different types of interactive or demonstration tools. These are really helpful to explain concepts in visual, hands-on ways and attract interest from your target audience. There are some good ones out there, but there's definitely room for the development of more of these options. One was created by the M River Company. It's a stream table, and they have different models, but they all demonstrate the concepts of river or stream flow and related conservation practices. And some of these are more portable than others and easier to set up. They use a variety of unique plastic sand that is like the modeling media that can be moved around and restructured as the water flows over it. And they can help you explain concepts like straightening or channelization, what happens when gravel mining occurs or changes in land use, and also just natural processes such as sediment transport and erosion. Another useful model that I've used at watershed events is of a septic system, a cross section, and it shows like the actual septic tank and the leach lines and how you inject like a red dye colored water into the septic tank, and then it slowly percolates into the soil media beneath the leach lines. And it's pretty attention grabbing and helps draw people in to actually let you talk to them about septic systems and how to maintain them. And if you've been in the water field for any time at all, you've likely seen a demonstration of the Enviroscape model. These are ubiquitous, but they are really a good way of arousing interest in just really basic watershed concepts of land use, runoff pollution, and best management practices. And as most of you know, you simulate pollution by applying like cocoa powder as dirt or soy sauce as car oil or fuel, colored sprinkles as fertilizers and pesticides. And then you simulate rainfall with a spray bottle, and the kids can see how it runs off the land and collects in the waterways. And there are different models that that you can buy with the Enviroscape that help show other topics such as groundwater, drinking water, and wastewater issues. This is an activity that is fairly simple, but it was developed by Bluegrass Greensource to help engage them and ask them about whether or not they know if practices are good or bad related to stormwater pollution. And you ask the participants to stick either a happy or a sad water drop on those practices. For example, a sad drop is next to this car that's leaking oil, or the trash by the storm drain, and then the happy drops are next to the man who's picking up pet waste, or the better lawn fertilization method. And I've used this at watershed festivals also, and it seems to work well with younger kids, especially. So I keep mentioning festivals, and events are another outreach tool that we can use. They really can be helpful for energizing the community, building awareness and education, and also incorporating direct action through service projects. You can model good behavior at these if you're doing a stream cleanup or tree planting, and they can be more personal than some of these other approaches I've discussed. However, it can require a lot of preparation time and work to organize. It is possible that you get really low attendance, especially if you don't have good weather and it's an outdoor event. And if it's not done well, it might not be so good for your cause, but they can be really successful methods. One of these that's been done really well is in Bowling Green. They've been holding a streamside field days for several years, and they've been really successful. They have really good partner support, and they have a good location along Drake's Creek where they can easily access the stream and do activities. It's a collaborative effort between Warren County, the city of Bowling Green, and a local beautification organization called Operation Pride. And they have also gotten significant grant funding from General Motors Green program, which has helped them pay for the buses to get the kids there, purchasing supplies for the various instructional stations, and then some refreshments for the participants. They've also had the portable restrooms and pizza donated by local groups. So I've been involved with some of these similar ideas, but they're usually for like 4th to 6th graders when the school curriculum touches on these topics of water issues. And we've had events in Clark County, Wolfe County, Leslie, Callaway County, and they are a good way to reach a younger audience. So now, related to that, I was going to have Rhonda Lamb talk about a similar event that was held in her area in Western Kentucky.
Thanks, Melissa.
You're welcome.
This, our Festival Family Day was part of our Sustainability Summit week. We had a week-long activities planned out, including stream team, litter pickup. We had summits, educational summits about various topics in the area. We had a project, aquatic wild workshop, just different events all week long. These pictures are of our 4th year, and it was a huge success because we finally found the right partners to work with. After the 3rd year, we were on campus, worked with the Watershed Studies Institute, had quite a few people, but it was hard for the public to get there. So I become a member of the Friends of the Arboretum at Murray State and realized a lot of people didn't know what all the Arboretum had to offer. So I got with Dr. Tony Brandon and the manager of the Arboretum and said, hey, what do you think about holding an event there? And then I knew the lady that was over the outreach and education at the public library, and they do awesome events everywhere. And we started talking with them, would they like to partner with us? Well, her one issue was if the library was involved in it and it was outside the library, it had to be when both school systems, county and city, were out of school. So we were like, okay, we'll do it spring break. And because we have a lot of kids in the area, their parents work, they can't go anywhere. We wanted the event to be free. The library had wonderful resources to get Jason Lindsay, Mr. Hooked on Science there. A business donated his fee for us. He was our main attraction. We had water quality, educational things set up all through the Arboretum. You can see there's the River Lab, Enviroscapes. We looked for macro invertebrates. We also partnered with the City of Murray. The Callaway County Conservation Office gave away free trees that day to anyone that come. We had LBL was there, Land Between the Lakes, with the nature station. We had turtle races and stuff for the kids. The apiary was opened. They got to see the bees. The horticulture club from campus, everybody left with a little potted flower. Master gardeners were there for the parents. We had in a day for everybody. We had over 400 people there that day. And the Arboretum was close enough to the local school they could park, and it was just a block to walk to the event. And the Wildlife Society on campus sold pizza and Coke, where if they wanted to stay for lunch, that's all the money they had to spend, and they loved it. And it was so sad we had to cancel this year, but hopefully next year we'll get to do the event again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. I hope you do too, because it sounds amazing. And great that you could capitalize on spring breakers. So another thing that Ken Cook especially specializes in is creek walks, which is a good way to get people out and talk to them about the local streams. And I'm going to let Ken take over again.
I think the focus of our creek walks that we do in the Wolf Run watershed are adult oriented. In other words, we're trying to get people with the neighborhood engaged with their local stream. These are similar to, but different than what I would call K through 12 creek walks or educational field trips that Bluegrass, Greensource, and others do so well in our area. These particular ones are usually done in partnership with a local neighborhood association. We want to get people down to the water's edge of their local creek. Generally, families are welcome, and it's always fascinating to discuss the finer points of infrastructure financing and the politics of water quality, along with 11-year-olds or 8-year-olds trying to capture things out of the creek. Hopefully, it's not typhoid they catch. So the logistics of this basically is surveying the area in advance. Never lead a creek walk when you haven't been to the site before. One time I was asked to do a creek walk in Kenton County, and the 40 school students were taken to the side of the Licking River with a 30-foot mud bank down to 18 feet of water. So you have to choose appropriate locations for these types of outings. But generally, just getting them out on the creek and then having the conversations as you walk along are all that are needed really to catch them. Because the stream itself is your best audiovisual aid, your best display, and your best educational resource.
Thank you, Ken. I got some feedback. I just, as a funny aside, the top right photo was one that a creek walk that Ken and I were on in Wilmore. And as I was putting this presentation together, I saw the second photo that one of the organizers sent, and he had like superimposed mining photos. There are miners looking like they're coming out of the mining portal. It's just funny to me. So along these lines also are festivals, just a festival celebrating the local waterway and getting information out, but also kind of a celebration. And Laura Gregory has done a great job of this in the Red River. So I was going to have her talk for a few minutes about the Red River Festival she's helped organize.
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, cool. Well, hello, everyone. So I'm Laura Gregory. I'm the Red River Watershed Coordinator for Kentucky Waterways Alliance. We're currently implementing the Red River Watershed Restoration Project in partnership with the Danny Boone National Forest with an EPA 319 grant awarded by Division of Water. And one aspect of our project is environmental education. And we've offered lots of different kinds of environmental education events, like the water festival that Melissa was mentioning. But one of the best has been the Wild and Scenic Red River Fest. It actually began in 2017 as a fundraiser for and by the local watershed group, Friends of Red River. And in 2018, that marked the 50th anniversary of the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act and the 25th anniversary of the Red River receiving that designation that keeps it free flowing. And with the help of Kentucky River Authority, KWA and Friends of Red River were able to host an even bigger fundraiser that year, fundraiser event in the form of the Wild and Scenic Red River Fest. And it included a paddle, music, live music, speakers, and booths with historical and environmental education. We learned a lot from the 2018 event, and in 2019, we hosted another successful River Fest in a different location on a different section of river that we paddled, and a larger outdoor venue. We got more community support for the funding, the event tent, and a 2-day cleanup that where we removed literally hundreds of tires from the 4-mile section that we were paddling for the event. And we were able to host more educational booths at the larger venue. And we added an event passport to engage visitors more with the educational portion of the event. So you can see that there. So as you can see, the passport was made specifically for this event. It has like the year and the presenters listed. I have some still. There was a great variety of presenters and content, and they each had a unique marker that was like a stamp that they added to the passports as visitors came by and listened to what they had to say. And once the visitors got their passport filled, they add their name, email, and their county, and turned it in for a prize. And they got to pick between a KWA clean canteen stainless steel pint glass and one of these cool fish flip books made by a local artist. You can see it, pretty awesome. So, and people were actually, they really wanted to know, some people were like, what am I going to get if I fill out this passport? And I was like, they're cool prizes. So I don't think that you could just do like some stickers and people would necessarily want to do it. I think they wanted a good prize. Yep, and also including that email, people turned in their passport when they were done. So we were able to add their contact information to our email list. And by including the county, we were able to see our reach with the event. And that was also good for the our local funders, because we got tourism funding, and it was good to see that we had local people, but also people traveling from other counties and out of state. Yeah, overall, the passport was a big success. Visitors enjoyed the activities and prizes, and the presenters also commented that they had a lot more engagement through the use of these passports. A lot more people actually going and listening to what they had to say, which is the point. And the only thing that I would say, like, lessons learned is I'm wondering if there's a way to make these passports be useful from year to year, because it's hard to predict exactly how many people are going to be there and engage. We did have, a number of leftover that are just not good for anything. So that's unfortunate. And I will also give a big shout out and thanks to Bluegrass Greensource, because that's where I got the idea for the passports in the first place. And Amy helped me a lot in the content and how to make that happen.
Great.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
I wonder if you could put just put a sticker of the year on there. So you reuse the passport and you just put the sticker of the year on there.
Yeah, we also included, well, you can see it on the thing, but
right.
all the different people that were presenting, which I thought was important because I wanted people to see what they were like, except for they didn't keep it either. So they also didn't like go and look up one of these things afterwards. So I don't know, there's still some troubleshooting on that, on them having something to take away. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah,
Great.
and it is on like a cardstock piece, so it does make it feel like a little bit nicer and more official. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. So another event that most of you are probably familiar with is riparian buffer plantings. These are do require some upfront planning and work, but they are a great feel-good community activity, and they can provide combined environmental and aesthetic benefits. This one in the picture is at a local park in Houstonville. It is really, really important to have a long-range maintenance plan for these projects that is co-developed with the site maintenance crews so that these areas can thrive and don't become eyesores that are negatively perceived in the coming years. These plans need to include ways to prevent weeds from taking over, weeds and invasive plants, mowing plans that protect the buffer plantings, and accompanying educational signage to help provide the public with an explanation of its importance and kind of what's going on there. So along those lines, Lexington has been holding their Reforest the Bluegrass event for 20 years. And I was going to have Jennifer Myatt just say a few words about that event and how they were able to adapt a little bit this year during COVID.
So so for 20 years, we've had Reforest the Bluegrass, and during a Saturday in April, volunteers come out and plant trees in a public location like a park. We've done out at the horse park before, but somewhere that importantly for an event like this has good parking and is fairly accessible for wheelchairs and strollers, and that we have a flat spot to put a tent, because we do an education tent at Reforest the Bluegrass. However, not this year. So we did Reforest the Bluegrass at home during May, and we have the seedlings that we would normally hand out at Reforest the Bluegrass. We had them in buckets at different locations throughout Lexington, about half a dozen each weekend. And you could just come and pick up the seedlings that you wanted from the buckets and go plant them at your house or in a park, kind of wherever you felt like you wanted to plant that tree. We had the buckets labeled with the tree type, and we have the map so that you could go in afterwards and submit your tree. So I planted a tree in my yard at my address so that we kind of got an idea and that everybody had an idea of where the trees were planted. It was really popular and went really well. I am not sure of the final number of participants, but we got a lot of good press on it, and I don't believe that anyone planted on top of a sewer line. So yeah, it went really well, and it was a nice way to have a virtual event with a real life component to it, because people have, especially now, they're kind of zoomed out. So this is something you could do outside, but you're still kind of participating in an event with other people. You're just by yourself.
I assume you all provided some guidance on how to plant the trees too.
Yes.
With the
on the type of tree, and don't plant it under power lines and that kind of stuff.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. Another type of event are workshops. In 2019, Jessamine County's Extension Office and their Stormwater Management Agency co-hosted a lawn care workshop, so similar to the No Pee on My Lawn idea, except this one was more about just kind of simple lawn care practices that they could do to help have more sustainable lawns, how to conduct a soil test and plant a tree, and then some other kind of general water prevention, water quality protection measures they could do. This is a great idea to work between the MS4, the Stormwater Agency Utility, and the County Extension Office, because Extension offices are such good resources for the community, and they have the knowledge and the materials and the space to help provide these types of workshops in the community. So it's a good partnership. Lexington's Environmental Services Department has created a really neat Plant by Numbers program that helps citizens who want to create kind of pretty, attractive, low maintenance, pollinator friendly landscaping, but they don't really know where to start. And so it's inspired by the paint by numbers concept from our childhoods. But this program provides templates for full sun, full shade, and partial shade areas for two different types of gardens, one in the easement areas by the streets, and then one by streams if they happen to have a stream flowing along their property and have some areas with wetter soils that would you would want to plant a slightly different types of plants there. And along with the planting suggestions, they have planting tips and resources for where to purchase the various types of plants. There also have been a variety of workshops across the state that relate to rain barrel construction and use and septic system maintenance. Bluegrass Greensource has provided these and other workshops for communities throughout their region. And this workshop, publicized on the right, the care and feeding of your septic system, was funded through a project to the Redbird Mission in Bell County. I think that was through their Kentucky River Authority grant that they received. And attendance was encouraged by offering a free septic tank pump out to those who attended. Another option for outreach is demonstration or educational parks. And a good example of that is in Northern Kentucky at Sanitation District No. 1's Public Service Park. And I believe Mindy Scott is on the call and is going to talk about that for a few minutes.
Hi, guys. Well, yes, and I got some talking points from Andrea D, who is our environmental educator, and she's the one that usually takes care of the park and the field trips. Typically, this is here at our facility, and typically it's open to anyone that can come from like 8 a.m. till it gets dark. You can come and take a tour of the park, or you can actually, if you contact one of us in a normal year, we will give you your own guided field trip. And we also have schools that are engaged in like a 5-lesson environmental unit that participate in a field trip. Usually 4th or 5th graders will come through that. Again, with 2020 being the way it is, she's actually came up with kind of a virtual tour now. So she's reached out to a lot of the teachers. If they're still willing and to do that lesson, then they can actually get online and do a virtual tour. And they still have different activities that they need to complete for the lesson plan. But at least that will give them sort of an idea. It's not the same as coming to the park, but at least they get an idea of what's going on. And if you go on our SD1 website, the sd1.org website, you can get on and it'll tell you the different BMPs that we have at the park. It'll tell you about the audio tours. It has, PDF of the brochure if you're interested in that and any kind of information. And, if you guys ever wanted to come on a normal year, let me know and we can definitely get you a tour, because we give tours out to, developers, city planners, college students, community organizations, whatever, they want a tour, we'll give them a tour, whether it's a large tour, small tour. But again, this year's been a little strange, but and I can, anything else specifically that you would want to know, I could turn you over to Andrea. But yeah, it's a pretty cool park, and we maintain it. But again, it's kind of a shame that this year we didn't get to have the kids come out and do the field trip. So, and even my kids were supposed to come out last year in 5th grade, and I was all excited because I was going to dress up like the mascot and I was going to scare some kids. But then, March happened and I didn't get to do it, so I was a little bummed. I've been waiting for that for my kids to come so I could chaperone. But
maybe you could do it for their birthday party this year.
They were even pumped. They're like, "Yeah, my mom's going to be the mascot," and Splash, and it didn't happen. So, what do you do?
All right. Thanks, Mindy. That was helpful, and I actually need to get up there and see that in person. Thank you.
Anytime, Melissa.
Okay, thanks. So another good way before we leave the event section of this presentation is another good way to engage participants is through scavenger hunts. We had some good success with this during a family-friendly, socially distant event this fall. They're a good way to engage people, especially like community youth groups or families. And the example on the left is kind of old school, but it worked great. It was just a paper handout that actually Lindsay Nicholas created using the free Canva graphic design program. And the front has the questions, and then on the back, they filled out the answers or drew what they were supposed to do. And it was also to get some feedback about things that we could do to help make the trail more interesting and inviting and useful in the community. So that's one example of an old school scavenger hunt. And then there's an app for that, and it's called goosechase.com, where you can create your own scavenger hunt on this platform, and it's free if you limit the users to 3 players or 3 teams. And then the players can go out and enter their information when they find it, or take pictures and submit those. And of course, there's like a way to track and review progress, and then publicize whoever is the winner of the scavenger. So presentations, which we're all pretty familiar with, we all know that presentations are often a necessary component of our meetings and events where information needs to be conveyed to a larger audience. And when we think of a current day presentation, they're usually accompanied by digitally produced slides from a projector or now online. And the preparation of the material and the physical act of presenting it are keys to how successful they are, but they can be participatory and engaging and good for persuasion. They can be more personal because except for virtually in a normal world, as Mindy said, we would be face-to-face presenting. Some of the cons are that sometimes you just kind of reach a smaller audience. They can require a lot of preparation time. Sometimes we may tend to be a little too technical in the information we're presenting. And again, there's that issue of trying to get audience attendance. How do you get people to come to see a presentation? Here's some guidance on developing presentations. You're going to want to use your presentation slides to help you tell a story. We've talked about that in this module. You want to create an outline that has a central focus with a beginning, middle, and ending of your story. You want to practice the presentation beforehand so you can carry it out successfully. You might want to make printed handouts for the audience to use to reference during the presentation and to take notes for afterward. And it's helpful to include humor or interactive interludes to keep them engaged. For design notes, you'll want to use some clear, informative photos and graphics to liven up your slides with minimal text, although this slide does not have minimal text, and use a consistent format and design for your slides. One person who always does a great job presenting is Barry Tonning with Petra Tech Consultants. He checks off all these boxes on effective presentation best practices. He loves making a point with humor. This slide about the need for erosion control direction for field personnel has a few of them sinking in the mud, which is typical Barry. He also is a master at finding good photos that illustrate his points. I've seen him on the roadside before capturing images for his presentation. This photo notes the complete ineffectiveness of the erosion control fencing that's several feet above a washed out gully, obviously not doing what it's supposed to do. He also is good at using photos to show the correct ways or the desirable and undesirable practices, in this case for erosion control. Again, a picture is really worth 1,000 words. And in addition to his great storytelling and anecdotes, he knows how to actively engage his audience, as shown here through this presentation ending true or false quiz. So he asks the question and then shows the slide with the answer. Social media. This has quickly become a go-to resource for outreach. Facebook, Twitter, podcast, blogs, and other media outlets can really be a cost-effective and timely way to especially reach a younger, more tech-savvy audience. Some of the pros are, these are pretty inexpensive usually, and you can easily reach cross-media marketing through connecting these various platforms. The technology is changing quickly, and it seems like there's kind of a newer, better, more popular platform that you have to adapt to. So it may require some tech-savvy staff to help you out, or some members of your group. Here's some social media advice, courtesy of Jennifer Myatt, who did a great presentation on this to the Kentucky Stormwater Association a couple weeks ago. You want to know your audience and make sure that your social media personality is reaching that platform's users. If that audience tends to be more receptive to humor, use humor. If they like more inspirational posts, play that up. You want to also always use the platform personally before you start an account for your organization or agency. Each of these platforms kind of has a different culture, and there are different ways and nuances to them that you'll become more familiar with as a user and are harder to pick up on as an outsider. So you want to test them out first before you use them for your organization. And then for hashtags, this was a new term for me. Also, you want to use camel case for better readability. You can see this example. They capitalize the first letter of each word to help with readability. For We Love Creeks. Through the Live Green Lex, the Lexington has a Watershed Wednesday post news, and they post these on Twitter and Instagram with photos from the community. So that was a good example that Jennifer Myatt also mentioned. One that's maybe notable to some of you in the watershed field is from the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer, which you would never maybe hit upon, but this is in the infamous Cuyahoga River watershed. And they do a really good job of using humor and creativity to get attention on their social media. Their Twitter feed is pretty funny. And here are a few examples of some of their posts that they use to get the public's attention. So after trick-or-treating, always check your kids' candy for anything that might be unsafe, such as flushable wipes or stream bank erosion. And then Turns out buffering isn't all bad. They have some clever taglines and approaches to getting information out. Another one of these is a TikTok video that I created. I tried to figure out a way to show it through the PowerPoint, but it wouldn't let me do it. It helps get the message out about how flushable wipes don't break down like regular toilet paper, and reminds their customers to only flush the 3 Ps, pee, paper, and poo. So you might check those out if you're interested and get some good ideas. So as we all know, websites can also be extremely useful for making general information available to the public. You can reach a really large audience. You can keep it updated with current information. They may be difficult to evaluate for effectiveness because they're kind of just out there, and you don't, well, you can track visits, but you don't know how much they're actually having an impact in the watershed, possibly. And they need to be updated and maintained with fresh content. And obviously they rely on internet connectivity. A really great example that was developed this year by Bluegrass Greensource has a ton of information about connecting communities and waters. And I'm going to let Lindsay Nicholas talk about this for a few minutes. Lindsay?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. So the concept for the Connecting Community and Water page came from, we have a 319 grant for water quality improvements in a couple focus watersheds in our service area. And a big part of that's community outreach and education. And so we focus a lot on adult outreach that we're missing from all of our summertime events. And then our teachers were not in schools in the spring. And so this summer, we really dove in and kind of developed this site. We used Google Sites and we just kind of self-taught ourselves how to do it. And I had fun with it. I just really took it and was like, wow, I can add so much information on this site that I wouldn't normally be able to do in my 30-second elevator speech. So it was really exciting to like just sort of dive into, here's a lot of the details and resources that I normally pass out or do in workshops, and I can provide them all on this site. You know, all those partners that I've been connecting with, I can throw that up. And so it was really fun. So like the septic page, we were able to connect them to the big do's and don'ts, but also add in more detailed resources that they could click on and take them to those resources as well. Always a link to like the ways, so stream buffers, we were able to find some really great videos that we did research on during our Water Wednesdays. A lot of great facts on this page and cool demos of the stream table, tons of University of Kentucky resources that I was able to put on here and link to that I normally talk about, but you know, it was a really cool way to engage that. And I had like the podcast that Amanda and Carmen do on there. Another huge project with the website was in coordination with that because it had 2 tasks. So adult outreach, but also trying to fill that gap of the kids and our K through 12 education in these areas. And so to go along with the website, we developed these student water quality packets, get to know your H2O, and tried to kind of brand it with that connecting community and water concept. So we had like the watershed protection booklet. I developed coloring pages for the 2 watershed areas and kind of had questions to go along with that. A watershed fundana bandana, Play-Doh to make their own macroinvertebrates, a bookmark that they could plant. So all things that involved action or like something that they could do with what they're getting. So that was really fun to develop that and you know, use some of our budget that we would have used otherwise in different situations for events and putting that into something that we could pass out into the community. So our educators are actually passing these out now and working virtually with classrooms. So kind of how it worked will come later because we're actively utilizing this site with adults and with kids in the packet. So all that's happening right now. And I can speak to how it works later on. We're still kind of in the midst of it because it's just been developed and released. And then there's a Get Involved page on there that has our watershed stakeholder groups. We have a map on there for, I think it's on the next slide, of like becoming a watershed hero, which ties back to the language that's used in that Project Wet booklet. I'm just trying to connect all the resources that we're giving. So like they can put, if they click on the form or scan the QR code, it'll take them to a survey 123 with just like a question app, and they fill it out, add a picture, and it automatically adds a point to this map to show like that they saw something cool in their watershed, or they did a stream cleanup, or they planted a tree, or whatever. So it can be all, or they put together a whole project. And so there's a lot of different ways to use this tool that we hope to continue engaging our audience with. I think, there's a lot, and then we have all the different ways, like form a stream team, and we put the resource there for the 4-H stream teams, all of that kind of stuff. How did your GIS work? So through GIS, we can create, as a nonprofit organization, we have a GIS subscription. And so we use I did it. So I know enough about GIS to be dangerous. And I was dangerous. I put the entire Kentucky streams layer in my map and used up all of our points, and then had to call GIS crying and saying, please give me my points back, I'll delete the layer. When I said I know enough to be dangerous, it's really true now. But I learned my lesson, and I had to kind of do a lot of different stuff. But yeah, it's a free, or it's $100, I think, a year for the subscription, Steve, for nonprofits, which is an amazing deal for GIS. They limit what you can do, but really now I know storage is one of the big things, but it's been a really cool resource. So that's what we use to develop that map and others. But anyway, the site it's fun. It was an exciting way to get a lot of information in one place, and then be able to direct people to different parts of that website based on what we were talking to them about. So I'm excited to keep working on this and including partners on the site and whatnot.
Thanks, Lindsay, sorry. Very productive use of your pandemic time. The next example, I wanted Dale Booth of the Division of Water to talk about our story maps, which the Division of Water has been using and doing a great job with.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. I'm Dale. I'm at the Kentucky Division of Water in the non-point source and basin team section, and I oversee the state's 319 grant program. So a lot of you are familiar with me through that. And as Ken was saying, maps are an awesome storytelling and educational tool. They really help create a sense of place, illustrate spatial relationships, and have a lot of visual appeal that draw people in. So I think probably my preference with maps is to have the in-person solution to showing them off. But since we're here in post-COVID times, or in COVID times, I guess going to the digital is always a good tool too. And ArcGIS, or Esri, has developed the ArcGIS Story Map, which is a web application that allows you to create custom maps. You can add text and photos and video content, and all through a fairly intuitive interface. The maps that you can create through this web application are interactive, so you can scroll, you can zoom in, zoom out, click on features to get information. For example, if you wanted to show off a county that had multiple best management practices, you could zoom around and click to learn more about the practice and what it's doing for the environment. And the end result that you get is fairly reminiscent of a web page, which is very nice for people who don't have web design experience. And it gives you a pretty slick looking interface for people to interact with. And the difference being that as opposed to a web page, this type of format allows you to kind of sculpt your message a little bit more directly than you would with just a web page. It lets you guide the reader through content in a fairly focused way to get to your point and to your message. So the example that we've got here is the Kentucky, what's your water story map? It's something that we developed originally in 2017 to go along with our education and outreach for Water Week in Kentucky, and we later updated it to be used in our Splash into Spring 2020 campaign. And the basic idea here was to try and build interest in water issues and get some educational material out there, but also through storytelling, through interacting with the community to try and build interest and a sense of community around water. So we asked the citizens from across the state to share water places that were meaningful to them, ultimately to tell their own water stories and share with us through this map. So we wanted them to share like pictures of their favorite fishing spot or swimming lake or places they like to kayak. And in this particular situation, if they had a cell phone, they could take a picture and literally upload it directly to a map with a little description about the spot and anything significant to them about that spot through a crowdsourcing app. That is not available in the free versions of this application, but it is something that you could also build the map yourself and just solicit people to upload or to send you their stories, and then you upload them, which would give you some oversight. I see Ken's asking about that. That is important logistics to consider. This is a really like powerful way not only to inform people, but also to show how people are connected, to create that sense of connectivity through the special places that we all share. So you, once you've uploaded, anyone can access that map, click around and see the pictures that have been uploaded. You can see your own story. You can see other stories from your area. And then in addition to the actual crowdsource map, what we had was, you'll see up there several other tabs. The what is a watershed, runoff pollution, and be the solution, to give more information and more directed information about watersheds, runoff pollution, and solutions to those problems that we're finding in the watershed. So it's a combination of sort of the social aspect and the educational aspect all in one go. So one thing that's a pro for this is that you don't really need very specialized GIS knowledge in order to put together a good resource. And I feel like it's fairly point and click to get these made. And the end product is really quite useful. And we get a lot of feedback that people are interacting with the app. So it's also through GIS. I believe you can track metrics on how many people are interacting with your story. So.
Thank you, Dale. And there are several other examples of water-related story maps on the Division of Water's website. Okay, the next example, I was going to have either Dawn Schroyer or Jennifer Myatt talk about, is a citizen survey that's being used by the Hickman Creek Conservancy and Palmer Engineering to solicit feedback. Jennifer, were you going to talk about that?
Yes, I'm talking about that in place of Dawn. So okay. I'm your backup speaker, so I don't know as much about it as she does, but I can give the quick rundown. They have a citizen survey up until the middle of this month, and we are getting it out to different members of the community in the watershed through schools and neighborhood associations and that kind of stuff, social media, the usual kind of channels. I used Nextdoor to post it to the watershed, since you can kind of get fairly accurate watershed lines by picking neighborhoods in Nextdoor. Not perfect, but pretty good. And then there's also a part in the survey that's kind of like a map where you can like pick pieces that are of particular concern to you if you are filling out the survey. So they're going to use that data when they come up with the watershed plan to figure out not just, hey, it would be awesome if we did a big project in this location, but what do the neighbors want us to do? And what is feasible for the people who live, work, or go to school around that project? So to kind of feel out the community a little bit before you just make a watershed plan and just kind of dump it on them, so to speak. So it's really, they're getting a lot of good feedback, and it's a really important tool for working within the community, because you can't do a stream side buffer in a place where people are really hostile to that idea. So you might have to come up with something different, or move to a different location and that kind of thing. So just trying to work with the concerns of the community and trying to figure out what projects are best when you come up with your watershed plan.
I'll be really excited to see how this works out, because I think could be a useful tool for the future. And she also mentioned that through the survey, they're getting contact information so they can keep people engaged as they develop the plan and then implement it. Thank you, Jennifer. So those were all some examples of how to package your message, but they also kind of captured step 5, which is distributing the message. And we want to remember these take-home points about this particular step, the final step of our watershed outreach planning effort. So how? Face-to-face communications are critical in building understanding and buy-in, even in today's world. And a two-way communication, conversation in person, hopefully we're going to get to that soon, again, is much more meaningful than just online interactions. As far as who you use to distribute the message, remember that you want to use trusted members of the community, possibly peers within your target audience who can be more persuasive and help you get your message out. And when you want to build in plenty of time, for instance, for the news media to report your story or to publicize scheduled events, get people to add it to their calendars and plan to be there. And certain messaging, such as some of these lawn care guidance workshops or riparian plantings, need to coincide with the ideal times for conducting these activities. In addition to the option of creating direct mailings through online services, you can recruit selected businesses to help target your audience and save money on postage. This slide talks about using whitepages.com to develop an audience profile. You pick your mailing list category and you can build a direct mailing list. As I just said, maybe you can partner with a business, a local business, and pair up your mailing with them or with the local, one of the utilities, a water or sewer utility. Targeted emails are obviously going to be possibly faster and cheaper and easier to set up. You can use different platforms such as Constant Contact or MailChimp, or as Jennifer just mentioned, Nextdoor, which helps you reach specific neighborhoods. These are easy to send repeat messages, and MailChimp, at least I know that one does, you can tag certain segments of your audience so you target specific messages that way. And of course, you can offer the option for readers to unsubscribe if they don't want to get your messages anymore. Some of the cons are that we get a lot of email and your message may be missed or ignored. Some of your content might be more useful in a printed format that can be referenced repeatedly or seen repeatedly, and it may be difficult to get email addresses for your audience. Once you do send a message out this way, you need to be prepared to respond to questions and feedback from the recipients. And you might want to develop a list of frequently asked questions to help with responding from others in your group, or if you have staff to have on hand. And a hot tip, I'm sure most of you know this, but piggybacking your efforts by including your outreach information in existing publications or at standing meetings of important target audiences is a really efficient and effective way to help get your message out there. So now you have some background information to help you think through the format and the distribution approaches that you want to use for your outreach campaign that we've been developing along the way of this module. And these questions in yellow here may help you further think through that. We're not going to do that today because it is 3 o'clock. And but hopefully you'll do that after this session and continue that process on out. So if there are any last minute questions, Steve, are there any that you noticed that we need to cover?
I think most of them have been addressed in the chat feature.
Okay, great. I do want to remind everyone that we have been posting the content from all 6 of these modules on our Kentucky Watershed Academy webpage, and we are also have recorded these presentations for you to refer to later if you'd like. Any parting thoughts, Steve, before we sign off?